I'm sure that you have been involved in some conversation somewhere in your life where you had just met someone and you were talking to your friends about them, and they're like, yes, I know that person. And you said, you don't happen to know how old they are. And they said, well, yeah, I do. They're like 50 years old. And you're like, whoa, 50 years old? I thought they were like maybe late 30s or 40s. Don't we all want to be that person that, people talk about us and they say how great we look for our age? Well, there's actually some things that we can do to help that happen. Let me explain something to you, or let's go down the rabbit hole a little bit and see what things that we are doing in our life or in our diet. And when I say diet, I know it's kind of like a cliche. It's not necessarily the diet, it's how the food is prepared more than actually what we eat. Well, kind of, there's a balance there. There's always a caveat. So let's dig in. So there's something called accelerated glycation. Another big word. What is that? Well, it's really simple. Basically, we have foods, the macronutrients. We have sugars, proteins, and fats. Well, that's basically what we're made out of. We all kind of know that, I think. Anyway, sometimes in our body, the sugars that we eat will autonomously or like automatically, without our body's permission, it'll bind to the sugar or it'll bind to fat. And we call that new molecule, we call it an accelerated glycation. And then there's end products to that. Basically, that simple scenario is responsible for basically making you look older. Basically, giving you the symptoms of age. It lets everyone know faster how many years that you've been on Earth. So, like, what am I talking about? Well, to get more specific, accelerated glycation, or just sugar attaching randomly to fat and randomly to protein, is kind of linked to, it exacerbates any disease that's going on in your body. So, let's say you have migraines, you've had it your whole life. Accelerated glycation end products are going to make them worse for you, and it's going to make them more frequent. Or if you have diabetes, it's going to make your diabetes more pain in the butt to handle. If you have memory fog, accelerated glycation is going to make your memory even worse. If you have, lots of age spots on your body, you're going to get even more. Have I made my point? Well, basically, you have already present in your body something called glyoxylase. And that's a natural enzyme that your body can break down those accelerated glycation end products. Well, that's great. But how do we get to that? Well, we have to have glutathione. Well, okay, cool. So we need glutathione and we need glyoxylase, but how do we get those things? Well, from your liver. Your liver makes a lot of glutathione, and glutathione is actually fundamental for your body. And specifically, if you do have Parkinson's, you have low glutathione levels. If you have an autoimmune disorder, you have low glutathione levels. If you have memory issue of any kind, you have low glutathione levels. If you have heart disease of any kind, you have low glutathione levels. Maybe, I'm sure probably most of you have heard of glutathione. And it's a molecule that is major in protecting us from oxidative stress and from heavy metals. Now, I'm actually talking about pine pollen here. So how can pine pollen help us? Well, really, a lot of the research on pine pollen, most of it points to its ability to actually stop, block, break apart the accelerated glycation and the subsequent end products of that. That's actually huge. Imagine, taking one supplement, one food, one raw, natural, something that's so wild, it's so powerful in its ability to modify how your body responds and what it can produce. Basically, it's this. So when I take pine pollen, I know that the accelerated glycation in my body is going to be way, or dramatically reduced, slowed down. But not only that, pine pollen has glutathione in it. Now, there always is some controversy about, hey, if I take glutathione, can I actually absorb it? Well, kind of not. The actual studies show kind of liposomal glutathione or just intravenous glutathione works the best. But aside from that, when you're only testing glutathione, pine pollen has other things in it that increases our ability to manufacture glutathione. Okay, so basically, we know that we need glyoxylase. That's the enzyme that your body knows how to make to break down accelerated glycation. Because it's kind of like a normal process in our body. You know, our body's prepared for it. So we know we need glyoxylase. And in order for that to actually work, we know we need glutathione. Okay, cool, great. So pine pollen will boost glutathione. Now, here's this. Basically, when we take, like, let's say chicken, or we take beef, or we take even vegetables, and we cook them, we roast them, you know, like sometimes, or we get bread, and, you know, we put it in the toaster, and it comes up and it's been toasted. That coloring, just to give you an idea, that new coloring that you see on like cooked foods, that gives it all the flavor, that's an external source of accelerated glycation. So you have that going on in your body just kind of normally, and your body can take care of that. But when we eat lots of food that's like cooked, but not necessarily like steamed, but like, you know, sauteed or roasted over the fire, we're getting a lot of accelerated glycation end products produced. And then we eat that and we can absorb that. So when we do that, your body treats that different kind of accelerated glycation almost like it's a bacteria or a virus. We have receptor sites in our cells for that. It's called the Myloder reaction. When it happens in food, in us, it's accelerated glycation. Anyway, so when we eat that stuff, our body thinks that we're under attack. So we have something called nuclear factor Kappa B. I know it's an interesting word. Let's break it down. Okay, so we have nuclear factor Kappa B, and you know it's on our lipid bilayer, or it's on the outer layer of our membrane, of our cell membrane. And once that accelerated glycation attaches to our nuclear factor B, it goes to our DNA, and it does a couple of things. A, it stimulates the production of something called interleukin. And that's basically, it's a pro-inflammatory molecule. So say, you know, you injure yourself, you get cut, you get bruised, you stub your toe, your body's making pro-inflammatory molecules. Or if you have any disease in your body going on whatsoever, your body's already making pro-inflammatory molecules, cytokines and interleukins and tumor necrosis factor alpha. So the accelerated glycation, just to, you know, recap a bit, accelerated glycation activates something called nuclear factor Kappa B. It goes to our DNA and it does a couple of things. It creates pro-inflammatory molecules. So that means it's going to give you pain, inflammation, and discomfort. And then if you have any disease going on in your body, it's going to make it worse. So not only does it do that, but it stimulates more receptor sites for nuclear factor Kappa B. So the accelerated glycation that we're making just in our food process, we're eating that, and then we're creating lots of nuclear factor Kappa Bs, which are creating more pro-inflammatory markers. So our whole body is becoming more inflamed. Now, when we have lots of accelerated glycation, remember, it can come from our food, cooked food, that browning effect, and it can come from just us naturally. We don't really have to worry about that too much, though. It's more in our food because our body can handle it. But when we have a lot together, it turns off something called superoxide dismutase. Another big word. Okay, so let's delve into that. So basically with anti-aging, when we look at superoxide dismutase, basically, okay, it protects our DNA and it detoxifies us of very hard, strong pro-oxidants. Basically, like if you take iron, you know, and you put it out in the rain and it turns into rust, or you have your bike or your car, your nice car, and then you happen to walk by one day and you see a rust spot. That can happen in us. That rust can happen inside of us. And superoxide dismutase plays a big role in kind of stopping or preventing that process from happening. So like when we're testing it in mice. So we block all the superoxide dismutase in mice and see what happens. Okay, well they lose their mind. Their hair, gets gray faster. They get cataracts or macular degeneration. They have lots of new hypocerebral circulation, or just low blood flow to the brain due to a lot of oxidation going on in the arteries, which gives them heart disease, all kinds of things. But then when they activate the superoxide dismutase and encourage the production of it, not only do they not get those things, but they also live 30% longer. Now, one other thing with pine pollen. Pine pollen is fantastic for balancing hormones. It has something called cytosterol inside of it, or AKA beta cytosterol. So, there's lots of xenoestrogens in our diet. And if you're not sure what that is, I'll talk about that in another video. Maybe more specifically when we're addressing the different effects of a tincture form of pine pollen. But without that tincture form, just in the powder all by itself, it's really, really fantastic at buffering our hormones, mainly through that cytosterol or beta cytosterol. So we have, either too much testosterone or too much estrogen, which is typically the case in industrialized societies. So we have too much estrogen. Well, just in short, just to give you a little information really quick, too much estrogen in your body makes your body think you have too much testosterone. Counterintuitive, I know that, but it's kind of like a feedback mechanism. If you had too much testosterone, your body would say, hey, we got too much testosterone. Let's bring it down a little bit and we'll convert it into estrogen. So the problem is we have lots of estrogen in our diet, and then that shuts off our testosterone production. We need testosterone for many things in our bodies, in particular, with regulating the immune system, keeping it calm, increasing sex drive, stabilizing our blood sugar levels, actually allowing us to absorb the protein that we eat in our food, to build muscles and to build our tissues. But pine pollen, with that beta cytosterol, is actually able to slow down the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, thereby balancing two major hormone key players in our body. So with pine pollen, we get a slowed down aging process. Our chronological age goes up, but our biological age goes down. It was interesting. There's actually one study used just with pine pollen. They didn't do anything to it. They just cultured some cells, and basically they let the cells live their life out. And they knew when the cells were typically going to die. It's a phenomenon called replicative senescence. Basically, the cell has lived its life. It's starting to break down. It's not duplicating DNA anymore. It's showing like physiologically on its surface like age spots where they know, okay, the cell is about to die. Okay, great. Let's add some pine pollen to it. Let's just add it to the medium. Well, after a short period of time, the cells actually reversed the physiological symptoms of them about to kill themselves, or apoptosis. Basically, the cells started being active again. They started duplicating DNA again. They got rid of things inside of them, like when a cell is going to die, it creates a lot of enzymes so that it can puncture the sac that's holding the enzymes, and then the enzymes digest it. And, that's normal cell death. But the cells started being motile again after the addition of pine pollen. So we're getting fantastic anti-aging. If you have any memory issues going on in you whatsoever, you want to get on pine pollen. If you have any age spots on your skin whatsoever, you want to get on pine pollen. If you have just any type of, fatigue, or you just feel blah, let's get on pine pollen. It's fantastic, and it's always one of my #1 go-tos when I want to recommend anything. Anyway, try it and see how you like it.